understand what went on. It's like a low-level security software
Yeah,
or
something
what?
to spy on employees, I think.
Exciting.
Yeah, it just didn't work.
Okay, let
Okay.
me see if this new one has some image. Man, live streaming is a hit and miss, but this one has an image, so I'll just delete the old one, Daniel. And if
Yeah, I see something now. Yeah, I see it on
yeah, yeah,
X myself.
yeah,
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 cool.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
good.
that's a lot
So
better.
I'm there. Yeah, let's see. Did you post another tweet then?
I posted
Or
another tweet. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
there
Yeah,
you
yeah.
go.
Just to
Yep,
not
there you go.
confuse.
I'll post. Cool. Okay, the tweeted as
Awesome.
well. Okay.
And we're rolling now. So sorry about that, people that are just joining us. If you want to see or hear the most interesting part that we've discussed, that's going to be in the YouTube video after the show because it wasn't streamed, apparently. But we got a nice overview of how Daniel basically went about to jump from Amazon and why, and now building his own businesses. I want to ask, just in general, how many sacrifices do you feel like you need to make to create your own businesses and be successful? Do you need to be that guy that goes on a $50 Airbnb on a mattress on the floor? Is that required?
I think a lot less than what people think. I think what's important, in my opinion, is a sense of urgency. I think this is where I had my epiphany, where look, I did the classical mistake, like almost everyone does. Like I quit my job, and then I had some idea, right, light bulb moment related to my interests. I spent most of my time at Amazon building databases and building API services, and I sort of consider myself an expert in databases, API services, and I said, I've been programming for all my life. Why shouldn't I build a database as an API service for front-end developers? And I wasn't completely naive that I thought it's going to build it and customers will come. I started getting influenced by marketers and building in public and the sort of the getting attention, Gary V and other people. And I figured out the ingredients. But I think the big mistake that I did was thinking that this was going to be a predictable thing. A little bit like how I worked when I was an employee. When I was an employee, I was giving goals. Oh, we need to hit these goals. And you try to break down the goals into smaller steps. You reach the goals, and then you get promoted, or you get a bonus, or at least you keep your job. It was a predictable world. Right? It's like playing a video game. You collect the 3 stars, and you
It's
level up.
very linear. It's very
Very
linear,
linear,
right?
yes. Predictable, I think, is not necessarily always predictable. Like when you're an employee, sometimes you think you're going to get promoted, but you don't. But more or less in the realm of predictability, you tend to expect what you want. And I approached self-employment in the beginning the same way. I thought, look, if I build a great product and if I do the right marketing things, I get attention, build in public, build a following, and I build some credibility, then surely I will succeed. Right? I'm just going to do the right things. And I did,
This
I think I
sounds
did.
so easy.
Yeah, it sounds easy, right? I was super naive. I think I completely missed the huge amount of randomness, opacity, things that you can't understand, the complex systems of the market, why something works and why something doesn't. It's very almost impossible to predict, right? I think, and I actually to jump a little bit on a tangent, even when I was, because and then I was reflecting back, like even when I was on Amazon, like I was working in AWS, I started at AWS when there were like just 5 services, and when I left, there was almost 200, right? And I've seen the evolution of AWS from being something tiny for small developers, like a fringe thing, to becoming one of the biggest businesses in the world, used by pretty much everyone. But even from the inside, like despite Amazon having all the resources that you could imagine, all the money, all the cash, all the brand recognition, excellent engineers, business people, all the things that you could imagine you would want, the company had them. And even then, right, out of those 200 services that AWS has today, I'm not going to break my NDA or share any secrets, but only a tiny really make money, like a very small fraction. And you start thinking, how come someone with all that information, all that data, all that resources, all the benefits, all the advantages. And now I start to realize that business is much more random than it seems, that whether something works or not relies on human behavior, whether it resonates with people, whether the market really understands it, pricing, the competition, all things that you can't really measure. And I think that's what I missed, right? So I spent the first 9 months, in this whole building a product called User Base, which still exists, right? But I did the the typical problems. I just immersed myself into it. I was doing stupid financial decisions. Like, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, right? But since I was treating it like a big deal, like this is going to be my life's work. For example, I hired a
You're
lawyer.
Mark Zuckerberg, basically. Right?
Yeah, basically. I was just like, I hired a lawyer, for example, to write my terms and conditions, and I spent like
Oh, that's a good
$2,000.
one.
Like, literally, I'm embarrassed now to say that, but back then I thought my reasoning was almost felt logical. Like, yeah, it is going to be something so inconsequential to my life. Why not just spend some money now? I'm going to spend it anyway, eventually. Why not do it right in the first place? And I hired some people to help me because I was getting impatient. And look, I got a lot of attention. I was building a following on Twitter, had about 10,000 followers. When I launched it, I was #1 on Product Hunt. I was on the front page of Hacker News. My launch tweet got like 500,000 impressions. It got liked by Paul Graham of Y Combinator. I got public endorsements by the CEOs of Vercel and Netlify. Like, I was getting all the signals that I wanted, lots of validation, right? Quote unquote. I did this like validation now. Maybe we can talk about it more. But eventually, right, it turned out that this product has customers, still has, but it's only making about $10,000 a year, not a month, right? And considering how much effort I put into it and how much money I spent, probably it will never recoup what I've spent, both financially, let alone the time. And sort of that gave me a big I went through a small crisis of anxiety, I have to say. That was very brief, maybe 3-4 days, where I literally was waking up at night and barely sleeping. Like, what am I doing? 9 months already
But this
passed.
is worse than the gig at AWS then, right? It was getting there.
It was. I mean, I was confused, right? I mean, basically, because 9 months passed in a blink of an eye, and I had quite a decent amount of savings, but it wasn't unlimited. I had maybe 4 or 5 years savings, right, which was certainly good, but I almost wiped out a quarter already in the blink of an eye. That I barely sort of saw them coming, and I realized, look, if I don't do something, and I keep doing going this path, very soon I'm going to spend another year, and then suddenly I'm out of savings, and I'm going to have to go look for a job again, back where I started. And I think that bit of anxiety, I think, suddenly opened my eyes, because then I started thinking, okay, look, I don't really care about user base, actually, right? What I want to do is just maintain this lifestyle, as we were talking about before. I was enjoying this flexibility, and I started thinking, okay, what do I need to maintain my lifestyle? Basically, I need to pay the bills, right? I need to pay my mortgage, the utilities, the important stuff. So I started to work backwards from that. Like, what's the easiest way for me to, make $2,000 this month, just to start as a smallish goal? And I started thinking about these things, like these small wins, and like taking a freelancing gig here, doing a small product here, nothing with any ambition that this is going to be my life's work, or something's going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just, I want to pay the bills this month. Then next month I'm going to try to pay the bills again, and then the next month again. And as I started doing this, what I started to realize that actually these small wins, first of all, every single month was becoming a bit easier than the previous one. You learn more, you learn about more what works, what doesn't, what I'm good at, what I'm less good at. Sort of, you learn more about the market, what is more likely to work, and so on and so forth. You build more reputation, more credibility. You get more
Build
contacts,
audience.
build an audience. I had ever growing customer list, and so on and so forth. And then sort of, I think what I started to realize is that actually, right, because it's easy. Many of us start like to think, I'm doing something for the long term. Yeah, we like to say that. Yes, I'm building for the long term. I want to succeed in the long term. But I started to realize that probably the best way to succeed in the long term is to succeed in the short term. Like, there's these sayings, to thrive, you must first survive. I'm a big Formula One fan. To win the race, you have to finish the race. Like the order is important, right? You can't die, right? Because nothing, I mean, metaphorically speaking, right? I mean, whether it's in
Yeah.
business or in racing or whatever, the order matters, right? So these small wins were basically not only keeping me alive financially, but they were also opening new
Metaphorically.
opportunities. Right? Yeah. But they were also opening new opportunities for me. And actually, now I say, look, the things that I'm doing now, or even the things I was doing last year and the previous year, I would have never imagined in a million years. Like if I locked myself in a room and I started brainstorming all the things that I could be doing, I had to stumble on these, right, by doing these small projects, small experiments, that I wouldn't have stumbled into creator economy, doing products, courses, communities, all this stuff. It was really just happy accidents bouncing into random stuff. And this is
It's
a
really
team. Yeah,
really interesting. Sorry to interrupt.
no.
That Mark Liu said basically the same thing. That the
Yeah,
way he arrived at his ideas was that with each project he would see a
exactly.
problem and he would solve it in the next one, and that's
Look,
how it snowballed.
I think if you start studying successful creators, entrepreneurs, I think this is a very, very common theme. I remember the creator of Tailwind UI, Tailwind CSS, Adam Wetton, uh, probably he was one of the first people who I heard him say this, and I was following his journey quite closely. I respect him and out of curiosity. And one time I remember him saying, I would have never in a million years imagined that I would be working on a CSS framework. Right? It wasn't where he started, it wasn't what he was trying to do, but randomness, right, takes you to different things. And I think it's important to embrace randomness. This is, I think, what Mark Liu does really well. Peter Levels does this really well. Many others, Danny Postma, many others. Tony Din, for example. Lots of small projects. I think this is what this mentality of small bets, ship fast, 12 startups in 12 months, whatever it gives you, is this embracing the randomness of things, right? You try different things, some things work, some things don't. And I really believe, right, this is what I try to, hopefully convince people, right, that the right way to self-employment, entrepreneurship, in the hacking, whatever you want to call it, isn't this predictable thing, right, where you think light bulb, you lock yourself in a room, light bulb moment, I have an idea, I'm going to work hard on it, put it on the market, cross fingers, and something will happen. But it's really this embracing of, and which, by the way, when you think about it, again, to be maybe a bit more philosophical, this is not that different than how VCs work, how book publishers work, how even movie studios in Hollywood work. There's a great book by a guy called R. Devaney called The Hollywood Economics, who studies the Hollywood economy and basically concluded that almost nobody knows anything in Hollywood. Like if you if you try to ask directors or CEOs of movie studios to predict which movies are going to be the most profitable, nobody has a clue. That we think we know that in hindsight that some movies are going to make it, but when you look at the profit, which is the most important thing, it's really hard. Right? And when you think about it, why is it hard to predict whether movies are going to be successful or not? It's hard because it relies on human behavior, right? For a movie to be successful, you need people to go to watch it in the theaters, and they'll be so impressed that they go home and tell all their friends about it, and the friends come and they also multiply, bring more people, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, nobody has figured out human psychology's source code.
Exactly.
Right? It's just
Exactly.
a complex thing. It's like the weather. That's why we have the chaos theory, the butterfly flaps the wings in the Amazon forest and causes a tornado somewhere else. Same thing with human behavior, right? We're just complex. And going back to why even AWS, despite all the resources and everything we mentioned, even AWS struggles, right, to put successful product after successful product, is because even with all the information, with all the data, with everything else, you're relying on human behavior at the end of the day, right? And I think the same thing for us. I think we're fooling ourselves if we think we're some visionary, that we figured out a formula for success, right? I think the most reliable way of succeeding here is to be humble. I think, like, I see this a lot in, like, for example, Mark Lewis, Peter levels. Like, they try things without a lot of expectations. Of course, they have a hunch, that you always have a hunch, or at least the hope that this has some legs, it has some potential, but you're not really putting all the bags in it. So I just, like, think about VCs, right? Despite how much they think highly of themselves. If you go and pitch your startup to them and you impress them so much, you know, they say, "What is the most amazing idea that I've ever seen? Surely you're going to succeed." They're never going to liquidate their entire fund and go all in into you. That just wouldn't make sense. They might say, right, yes, this is, and they might believe it, right? But they're prudent investors. And I think we're also investors of our time. Like, I really like to compare myself with VCs. That I think of myself as a VC for my own ideas. Instead of investing capital, I'm investing my time. You know, we get 24 hours in a day, right? Time is as finite and as scarce and precious as money, right? And you know, what's the best ROI that I have for spending my 4 hours today, right? And sometimes it's putting it in an existing project. Sometimes it's starting something new. You know, I really liked when you had Mark. I think you asked him whether he's still building new apps despite having a big success now, and he said yes, absolutely. And I love that, right? And I think even if you're not building, right now personally, I'm not building something new, but I'm still with the radar on, waiting for opportunities to pounce on things, even though I also have a successful thing that is dwarfing everything else. But I just want to continue to build like that, yeah.
Sorry, but how it's possible that with your background, you didn't jump in the VC world?
No, I think I immediately, not immediately actually, I think, you know, when I mentioned at one point, something clicked in me that I realized, you know, full-time employment wasn't the right thing for me. I think the default was the Y Combinator part, whatever. But very quickly, I think I got convinced that I would end up in the same situation, beholden to different people, probably even more restricted, because, you know, when I was employed, at least I could give my 2-week notice and forget about the business and forget what I was doing, and that's it.
Now you need to give the 2-week notice to yourself, or what? Yeah.
No, well, I mean, if I were to get investors involved and I have strings attached, and maybe not necessarily contractually obligated, but morally or ethically or whatever, you know, it's not like somebody gives you $500,000 and 2 weeks later you say, you know, I'm fed up of this idea. I'm just going to, I'm going to shut everything down. I mean, maybe
you have
could do
responsibility.
You have some, you know, you don't want to let people down. Like, nobody wants to let people down. So I very quickly realized that would probably even worse than employment. And then I started looking at the odds of success and sort of personally, I think, you know, I'm not against VC in general as a finance instrument. You know, Elon Musk raising VC to build SpaceX completely makes sense. But I think especially the small SaaS businesses, right, where you just have an MVP and you're trying to go to this go big or go home route. I think it neither helps the founders, neither the customers, and I think the only people who get to benefit from this is the VCs themselves, because the VCs basically they operate in a completely different world, right? It's like they care about the portfolio, right? I mean, it's like I look to compare with this analogy, right? Imagine you're digging for hidden treasure underground, right? You know that there's some treasure hidden in some area and you're digging. You want to find it. It would be very foolish if you pick one spot and you keep digging hard and you keep digging and you keep digging in the same spot and you buy a new shovel and you work 40, 80-hour weeks digging. It would be very foolish, because if you pick the wrong spot, no matter how hard you dig, you're never going to find it. But at the VC level, it doesn't really matter, right? Because if you have a portfolio, a company of people digging, and you spread them around, eventually one of them will strike gold, even if all of the others sacrifice themselves, right? So eventually one of them will find the treasure hidden close to the earth's magma, which will be full of gems, and there you go, right? You make it big. But what about the individuals? The individuals are experiencing a completely different thing, right? And I don't want to be a bat in somebody else's portfolio. Right? I don't want to be one of those soldiers in the army of the VC. I want to be my own VC. That's why I like to compare that analogy. I want to have my own 12 things, right? I want to have my own portfolio of projects. And then those things, yes, I treat them more like cattle rather than like pets. If some of them die, whatever. It's something actually I take a lot of care about, because I think it's another insidious trap that we attach too much. Look, I want to be proud with what I put out in the market, and I have lots of, I think I have a high bar of ethics and standards and principles, whatever, but this business at the end of the day, right? Whether something works or not, it's what it is. And maybe this thing doesn't deserve my attention anymore. And I fear that if I attach too much of my identity to it, it will start to jeopardize my rational thinking. Oh, it's my pet, my baby. I don't want to feel like that, right? So,
Oh, yeah.
You actually said something very interesting that I want to touch upon. It, selfishly, I kind of had this in my notes too. And it's specifically around freelancing. And I remember one of the posts you've made way back, where freelancing was maybe 25 to 30% of your revenue.
yeah.
And I found that, so it was a way for you to diversify the revenue streams, and you had quite a lot. Did you stop doing freelancing, or do you still take some
No.
some
So
gigs?
I'm not doing any right now, but if I find a good opportunity, I would take it. Look, that's I think another mistake that many people do. It is believe that they don't want to trade time for money. Like, what if you're getting paid $10,000 an hour, just to put an exaggerated number? I would take that, right? But what about $1,000 an hour? I would also take that. I think that's a good rate. $500 an hour. I would take it as well, personally, even 250. Right?
You're
I
gonna get
spent
a lot of DMs now.
yeah. No, look, I think the idea that you shouldn't say time for money is quite foolish, because if the ROI is good, right, leaving that money on the table, and I think this goes back to, again, this fallacy that you should only build things that scale, that can work on their own, that make money in my sleep, blah blah blah, right? And I think you're not just leaving money on the table, but you're also leaving opportunity on the table. Look, initially I started doing freelancing, honestly, just to pay the bills, right? So when I mentioned that I had my debt crisis of anxiety, the first dollar, in fact, that I made as a self-employed person was through freelancing. I literally started thinking, how can I make $1,000 this month? I went to the contact list on my phone, and I said, who do I know? And I found somebody close to the end with the V's, who I knew had started a startup, and a while back told me if I knew any programmers, let me know. And I texted this guy and said, look, what if I help you take some things off your backlog, and maybe I do 10 hours, 20 hours a month, not even a week, right? Just very fractional, that I just do a little bit. And he said, yeah, absolutely. He set me up, and I did that for about 8 months, I think, right? But then the next best gig that I had, I was working with Gumroad as a fractional product manager, right? I was helping Sahel, the CEO, where our arrangement was, we called it quarter time, right? So I had sort of committed to about 2 hours a day average, right? 10 hours a week, more or less, fully remote, on my own schedule, right? Again, sort of without any of the, Gumroad was already very lean, no meetings, no sort of nonsense. And I did this for 2 years. It was a super great arrangement. And to be honest, I would have continued to do it. The reason I stopped was because eventually Gumroad grew big enough that it sort of, I couldn't keep up with this sort of fractional arrangement. And I really didn't want this to become a full-time job or anything like that. I just loved the fractional part of it, right? And actually, I think maybe that's one clarification I would do with freelancing. I don't want to get into some other, full-time like thing. I want the small things that give me more optionality. But yeah, absolutely. The Gumroad gig was paying me $10,000 a month for a couple of years, working 10
Not
hours a
bad.
week. Great arrangement, right? So and when you think about it, for example, then I had some success with a cohort. This is actually how the small best community started, which again is another example of randomness and how destiny takes you in random places. This didn't start a community, like it didn't start anything close to what it is right now. I started doing this 6-session live course on Zoom. Basically, all these ideas that I talk about, just how Peter Levels talk about his in the hacking stuff, and Mark talks about his ship fast methods. I sort of had this small best philosophy, I was calling it. And in 2021, I said, I offered to my audience, I'm going to organize 6 Zoom sessions, 1 hour and a half each over 2 weeks, $375 a seat. And long story short, these sort of filled up. I was opening cohorts of 25 seats each. And when you think about it, this is not a product, right? This is also trading time for money. I did the math, right? I was making, I don't remember, $18,000 per cohort, and I was spending, I don't know, 9 hours, and it turned out to be whatever it was, and maybe not a bit more than 9 hours because preparation, whatever. And I thought, this was a great hourly rate. I'll do it. If I were to do this for the rest of my life, I would be happy. I'm enjoying it. It's not taking me too much time. It's good money.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you that, like, how is to run a community of like 6,000 people?
Yeah. So, how is it for managing people or
managing, and that idea, like, how do you know, like, how much do you know these people? How much do you need to know in order
No,
to
it's
kind of
something,
like...
the way I think of it is, I think it's a subset of my Twitter audience. On Twitter, there's already a community that forms. When you think about it, you start seeing familiar faces under your own tweets. And I know these guys. Take Mark, for example. I never spoke with Mark face to face on video, but I feel like I know him a little bit, just from our interactions under each other's tweets. And many people like that. And I think what happened with the small biz community is that it's another walled garden place, right, where people paid a small fee one time to come in, and then there, again, like this started purely as a course in the beginning, right? And I had a Discord server, and we used the Discord server just to talk about things related to the course. But eventually, people started asking questions about, oh yeah, I'm doing this. Do you have any feedback? Or I just made my first dollar. I'm so happy, and people supporting each other, and so on and so forth. And look, it 6,000 people. There are 6,000 members, right? But the fact that it's a one-time membership fee, the activity comes and goes, right? So what's interesting is that because I don't charge a recurring fee, nobody can really leave, right? There's no churn. It's like Hotel California. You can check out, but you can
Pro
never
tip,
leave.
if you don't charge a subscription, you have 0 churn. That's fantastic.
But look, this might sound like a sort of cheesy thing, right? But it's actually, I think it turned out to be very important for the business because I think you have to be honest, right? I mean, life happens, like people aren't. I started this in 2021, right? Now we're in 2024. Many people who joined in November 2021, they got a new job, they had a baby, they got married, they got new things happening. They're not thinking about small bets or the community, whatever. And if I was charging a monthly fee or probably even a yearly fee, and they haven't been active for 6 months, almost certainly they would have cancelled, right? And once they cancel, basically the relationship with them ends, right? I'm not supposed to email them again. They're not my members again. Right? They're not my, they left, right? We broke our agreement, right? They're in my do not contact list.
But do you secretly wish that you charge them monthly?
No. So I never charged anyone monthly, right? So, but I think what I found interesting is that what is happening, the dynamic that is happening here is that lots of people were active like 2 years ago, then they disappear, and then suddenly you see them again. And when they come again, because they remember, or something happens, they get laid off, for example, and say, oh, I really want to start taking this seriously now. And when they come back, sometimes they talk about the fact that they're in the community. They go on Twitter and say, oh, I just attended this class, or I met these people, or I had this call with this guy or with this person, and so forth. And they bring word of mouth, right? The fact that nobody churns, right? It's basically an increasing list of people who I can still get in touch with, who can still work for me in terms of spreading the word of mouth, talking about the community, and so on and so forth. Of course, it's a trade-off, right? Because you don't make more money out of the members, right? But when you think about it, there's many businesses in the world and the general economy that work like this, right? You go to the supermarket, you don't get charged recurrently, right? You expect it to go again and buy something else. I forgot how we started. What the question was. That maybe I took it too much to attention.
I love it. No,
Yeah.
it was it was how you manage the
Oh,
6,000
managing.
people.
So yeah, managing. So we recently moved from Discord to Campfire, which has been working really well for us. There was something always annoying me with Discord, and we chose Discord just because it was the obvious thing. I think you guys as well have a Discord server, right? If I'm not mistaken. Two things really annoyed me about Discord in particular. First of all, the fact that it's a gaming platform and you get pop-ups about some Minecraft event or whatever, which it was tolerable. Right? You could sort of ignore it. It was a bit distracting, but okay. But the most annoying thing was that it was easy for people. It encouraged anonymity, right? Most people were just under a username. Like when you sign up for a Discord account, you're not told or prompted to enter your name. Like you have to go to some setting, and if you change it for one server, it doesn't apply to your server. So I was finding, on Discord, we had these 5,500 people, lots of activity, but you don't know who you're talking to. There are just a bunch of usernames, and you might have some interesting conversation with someone. It's just some cryptic lowercase username with numbers and whatever. There was it's like a bad, a negative atmosphere. I think not negative in sort of toxic, right? But just like there wasn't that wholesomeness of connectivity where there's the photo, there's the name, you can follow them on the social media, and so on and so forth. Campfire basically fixed that. So that is just a very subtle thing. The fact that, it's still, if you want to be anonymous, you can still put whatever you want, right, in your name, but almost everyone has their name, their picture there, and it just feels more connected, right? And the activity levels radically improved. Like we were getting, 15, 20 messages a day, which sounds very tiny when you think about it, right? For 5,000 something members on Discord. Now on Campfire, we're getting like 400, 500 regularly. And we've made this switch about 2 months ago. And I was thinking it's going to start diminishing because of the hype in the beginning. But it's actually improving. Right? And maybe you might say, number of messages per day is not the right thing to measure, but just, one other interesting thing that Campfire is allowing is that anyone can create rooms. And initially I was very concerned with this because in Discord, I was always like, we should create a room for a channel for books and a channel for AI. And I was always thinking, I don't want too many channels that they'll be dead. They look dead, they look inactive, like not too niche. And I was always like saying no to almost everyone. Now in Campfire, it's the complete opposite. Anyone can create everything.
How was the
Yeah.
move from Discord to there? This
So-
transition.
So, prudently, so we've been trying Campfire since January. We got accepted in the beta, and I think I was one of the very first paid customers of Campfire. And at one point, I just invited a few people, actually, without announcing anything broadly. I went on Discord and said, we're testing Campfire. I didn't tag everyone or whatever. Whoever happened to be there in the room, in the general room, right then, a few of them, like maybe 100 people, came to Campfire. And we kept running this for probably 3 or 4 months because we actually customized Campfire quite a bit. Nothing that you couldn't live without, right? But we started this. I mean, Campfire, I believe the problem was that it was built primarily to be a company Slack replacement, a workplace where you trust everyone, where you know who the people are, right? And I think for a community, you need a few other things to show that the place is active, right? Because you don't necessarily know everyone, right? To be able to, sometimes not everyone logs in every day, like to know where you left off, those kinds of things. So we customized and did a few other things. So we spent these few months just improving things until we felt, this actually is starting to feel good enough. And then no, we just went on Discord and tagged everyone and say, look, we're going to stop being active on Discord. Eventually we'll turn it read only. We're super happy with Campfire. Please move over. We sent an email to everyone. And about half of the people moved with just 1 or 2 announcements. I actually think of doing another push sometime this week to try to, but again, this is part of, I have lots of members like who joined like 2.5 years ago, right? Who forgot who we are, like whatever. So actually I'm pretty satisfied with 2,700, I think, that I have on Campfire right now. And again, like it doesn't look like there's 2,700 people talking at the same time, right? Because
I got the sense from other people in small bets that it went very well. I think a lot of people said that when you began the transition, it kind of felt like the original atmosphere in small bets, because on Discord
Yeah.
it was a little bit too hectic, and then
which is crazy, right? Because the activity was like a tiny fraction, less than a tenth. Like Campfire, even me, who's, I try to catch up and read everything, I struggle sometimes, right? Because there's so much things happening. So it's actually more hectic, but it doesn't feel as hectic. It's really interesting how a tiny change in software, again, like basically, Discord is a fascinating piece of software, very sophisticated. The mobile app is quite good. Right? It's very feature rich. All these features with video, audio, whatever. Campfire has none of that. Like it's a piece of software that 37 signals produced in like 3 or 4 months with 2 developers, bare minimum, the basic stuff for chat rooms. Chat room, it almost looks like IRC from back in the day, right? Basically, right?
So you have to align expectations a bit.
But most people don't care about the bells and whistles, right? So actually what they care about is this intrinsic vibe, right? And I think Campfire has this feeling like, it reminds me a little bit like the Messages app on the iPhone. Like everyone can use it, even my grandma, who is computer illiterate, right? But can send a text and understand what the things are, right? And Campfire has that thing. It's so simple, nothing popping up, no buttons, no gears. And that combined with you see the faces of people and the names of people, and you can click on them and you can see their social accounts and you can follow them. And I think that 2 ingredients, which by the way was another customization we added, that we added social accounts, social profiles, and so on, and so on, which helped a lot. But the vibe. There were a few people who complained again that you can't please everyone. One of the complaints usually is that people are familiar with Discord and they're accustomed to open it, and you have one app for like lots of communities. With Campfire now, you have another icon on your phone.
Yeah,
or
just
you have
another
tab,
place.
Another place. So there's that. Probably I would say that's maybe the biggest downside, that you have to convince people to open either a new tab or a new app. And there's some friction there. But it wasn't as bad as I feared. It's I think most people, I believe, I haven't really studied this well, but I think most people use Campfire from the web, from desktop normally. There is the app, you can install it, whatever, but they treat it like, how you might open Hacker News in the morning to check what's happening. Many people who are active open our Campfire in the morning and say, oh, what's happening? Here's some of those that I tend to look at. They interact and so on. And this was probably, I think, one of the best things that happened in 2024, which landed on our lap, like we weren't expecting it, was just Campfire. Like it's
right.
Because the group, I was almost giving up on the group chat. Small Bets had evolved to a place where the product became, Because remember, I started me as a course, doing a course myself. Then I was focusing on the Discord server. But I felt when I was promoting the Discord server hard, I was almost feeling I'm under delivering, right? Because it was actually the easiest thing to sell, believe it or not, especially in early 2022. I think there was so much, maybe you guys noticed this as well, so much of a demand for people wanting to belong in a community that it
Yep.
was so easy to sell. Like, here's exciting things are being said here, pay $185 one time and you get access. I had the best selling months during that period. But then I was feeling, actually, when I was trying to walk through the first one experience, it was so overwhelming that many people were buying it. Yeah, okay, they check in Discord, they scroll to a few things, then they close the app and then never come back, right? Because it's just, they don't know where to start. It's overwhelming. You see again all these
Yeah.
anonymous accounts. They're not, I didn't promise them something untrue. I didn't mislead them. It is the server and it was very, you see activity, right? It's not dead, but it just didn't feel right. So then I transitioned, like I repositioned small bets to be mostly focused on events, right? So we were organizing these, and we still do, these live classes, right? So it became the main course and everything else was just almost a bonus.
Yeah. Then
I was
this is not
inviting,
as important to
this was just there as an auxiliary thing, right? So the main thing was, and this turned out to be a big operation, right? Like basically almost every week for quite a long time, I was inviting an expert, right? On SEO or on YouTube or on Twitter or on some other thing on how to make money on this or that or e-commerce and so on. And for the members, we have these live Zoom classes. They can be in the same room with the expert. For example, next week we have Arvid Khan, right? You might know him. He's
Oh,
going
yeah,
to be
of
talking
course,
about
of course.
podcasts and market and building a media business and so on and so forth. And
He's
it's
awesome.
nice for people, right? Because they're there with Arvid in the same room. They can raise their hand, ask him questions. This worked really well, right? For a long time. And this I didn't feel like was under delivering. I actually felt I was over delivering because people were seeing the list of events, signing up, paying once, and then the list of events kept growing and growing, and the catalog. So they felt like it's the gift that keeps on giving. However, this was expensive to run. I was paying these hosts $1,000 per event, right? So I spent over the course of small bets, I think about $150,000 and just guest speaking fees, which it's fine, right? It's still profitable business, right? But it's still something
It's a
that's
sizable amount.
so not to mention it's operationally organizing the dates. I want to be there in the class. I moderate, right? Sort of monitor the chat like it was. There's always lots to do. But I think the problem that's happened over time, especially recently, it's one of those things that is hard to explain, right? I've been running this since early 2022, right? For about 2 years, or actually more than 2 years now, this live classes program, but the attendance rate started to diminish drastically, right? Whereas we used to be getting 100 people plus live per session. Now, if we get 25, we consider it like, wow, good turnout. And we've been having some classes where we only have like 11 people show up. And we're starting, we're spending so much time, effort organizing this. And it's very hard to know why, right? Because actually, I can A/B test, I can remove lots of variables. For example, I ran a class about Gumroad, for example, last December. And it had like 100 people, 125 people join live. And I ran the same live class maybe 5 months later in May of this year. And between those 2 dates, over 1,000 members had joined because I had a very successful Black Friday campaign and sort of first quarter was really good. I think about 900 something people knew who hadn't certainly been in the first class, but then I only had like 20 people join live in the second one, and this was happening with many different classes. So now basically I'm at a point again where I'm reconsidering, repositioning. This has been the story of small bets. adapting to the markets, right? And I'm
So
really
you
now focusing
constantly,
on
you,
constantly adapting. That's how I
yeah,
think of
exactly,
myself.
exactly,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
what does the market want? Can I deliver? What are people getting value from? And right now, I really believe the campfire is where the value is happening, right? And I suspect, personally, my own speculation is that we live to the COVID era and the post-COVID era where there was lots of demand for live interaction, live classes, cohort courses had their own thing. And I think many people have, in general, right, have lost the appetite to attend live classes. They're back to their usual schedule. Many have returned back to the office. They're busy again. There's an abundance of free time. So now you know, 2 years ago, you see a live event with Arvid Khan happening in 15 minutes, you get the reminder on your phone. People were jumping on it. Oh, amazing. No, I can watch the recording later, right? And sort of this is one of the pressures, right? You just always adapting. Whereas Campfire is the opposite now, right? It's really picking up. And I'm seeing people that are more interested in getting advice from others just by tagging the experts, right? Tag me or tag Arvid or tag someone,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And they reply asynchronously, maybe a day later. And I think that's working even better. So
Daniel,
yeah.
you seem like laser focused on small bets. That's quite interesting because even
Mm-hmm.
within small bets, you have seemingly
Yeah.
you've kept it steady, but you have to adapt a lot. But I wonder, the back of your head, do you think about your next small bet? You said earlier that you don't have
Yep.
anything planned, but you're looking, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
seeing the market, you're
Yeah.
paying attention. When is the Daniel Vassallo AI product dropping?
Yeah, no, very unlikely in AI. But I think something which I think happens a lot with many people is that while running small bets, I'm recognizing lots of small gaps, particularly with software, right? With event management, with even just basic email marketing, with basic things, how to run the business. That is, I think there's I really believe there's an opportunity here to carve out small things that I've built for myself to help operate the business, to carve out those micro, mini SaaS products. Right? So that's what I think is going to be rest of 2024, second half, maybe early 2025. A little bit, to use the cliche term almost, 12 startups in 12 months, but something like that where where I have maybe not 12 to be honest, probably I have six small things that I think with my audience and with me having needed these things, right, to be able to put out there on the market and then same thing, take what works. I wouldn't say throw away the rest, necessarily shut them down, right? But just stop giving them attention if they don't work out. And again, basic things related to scheduling events, like a poor man's Calendly, for example. There's many of them, right? And many of them are very sophisticated. But sometimes I need the most basic things. I just need to pick 5 days and send them out to my audience or to my email list and tell them, look, just pick something from these 5 days, right? And then, just exchanges the Zoom meetings, right? Where I'm sure you can do this with Calendly as with all the other competitors, but you just have to go to 5 different submenus and all those kinds of things. So I have uh, small SaaS ideas that I would very likely bring to market that in the very near future. But there's also other services type things. So I learned something interesting with my partner Louis earlier this year, where we did what we call the info product launchpad. That we're invited. It was like a mini cohort course, but it was more one-on-one based. Right, where we invited people who were interested in making info products, which we consider, books, courses, live classes, and these kinds of things, like to literally handhold them to the whole process, from finding viable ideas to producing the product to bringing it to market, to preparing the landing page, choosing the pricing, promotion, and all these kinds of things. And we modeled this around mostly initially as a type of a cohort course where we had like 4 lessons, one each week, right? And then we had a group chat and whatever. But again, surprisingly, what really worked best, I think, was that we offered people to have one-on-one calls with us. And these were amazing. That I felt they were super valuable, and everyone kept saying that, just this 30-minute call, paid for itself. Like whatever I paid, this is what I needed, because we were able to give like really useful advice. So again, like this might sound again like something not very creative, but I'm thinking of productizing this a little bit, like offering my own office hours, right, about things related to very small creators, right, who I'm not charging a lot, right, but charging say $800, and you get a number of some amount of time with me, right, and you can use it whenever you want. That never expires. You can use it. You have one sometime today, sometime in the future. You basically have access to me on speed dial. If you're doing something that you think I've done before and I'm able to help you, right, because I've lived it myself, just go to my Calendly page, book some time with me, and we can have a call. So
I'm not a
again,
fan of Calendly as well. If you're planning to build something, I'm
yeah.
fully on board.
Yeah. No, I really none of the options, or none of the options have really served me well. Again, I use them and I tolerate them, but I just like this simple, like just simple things, right? Especially since I'm quite careful again with my calendar, because I don't want to have it all like Swiss cheese. So I want to pick exactly what is available, right? And I think that's my workflow. Saturday at 8, I'm free. You can choose that. So it's not like this like 9 to 5 or whatever these
Yeah,
calendars
but I
tend to
also
define.
love the idea when it comes to indie hacking, when we take big products and then choose small pieces of
Yeah,
that
just
and
basic
then bring
features.
that.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I think it's another underrated thing that I see people succeeding with this, and but not a lot of celebration. But I think it's an underrated way of. Look, again, many indie hackers do these things, right? So it's not, but building a screenshotting tool. Like Tony didn't build a great screenshotting tool a couple of years ago. It was basically based on one feature. Like everyone has a screenshotting tool baked into their OS. It's free, but this thing that it did, it just balanced it. Right? So if you take it asymmetrical, right? I take a snapshot, and there's like 50 pixels of white and 20 pixels of white here. It just puts it in the middle. That was the main thing it did, right? And it was enough for people to pay $20 to have this thing that I take screenshots almost every day to share on social, whatever. It was a no-brainer, right? And I highly encourage people to think like that, like what's a missing feature? Don't think of, again, like something is going to be scalable or hype-driven or AI, whatever, like something small, right? And it doesn't need to continue to grow forever, right? What if this thing makes let's say you work on this thing for a few weeks and it only makes $1,000 a month, right? It's probably for many people that's already a great ROI, right? And this is the mistake, right? It's like forgetting that it is an ROI function, right? Whatever the payoff is going to be, how much did I spend in terms of time, effort, money, and so on and so forth.
For sure. And I think it's a great entering point for anyone who is just getting into indie hacking, just choosing one
Yeah.
simple feature and just building around.
The best way to mitigate risk, I think,
Yeah,
is to choose small things.
yeah,
This is why the small
yeah.
bets, that's why small in it, right? It's like, and all these similar philosophies, ship fast, 12 startups, 12 months, they're all focused on small, right? Basically, not overthink it, pick up things, don't chew more than you can bite, be realistic, shoot for the small wins, and then let the other things take care of themselves. And we can't control many things. The only thing we can control is our input. We start with a time budget, time appetite, and they say, for this idea, my appetite is to spend 2 weeks full time. Great, high intensity mode. I'm going to turn off social media. I'm going to bring it to market, figure out everything. 2 weeks. That's my appetite, right? It might not work. okay, I'll be a bit disappointed, but that's the most I lost. I think probably one of the most insidious traps is the indefinite project, like what I was doing in the beginning. Oh, eventually this will work. But when is that eventually? What signal will I know? Who's going to come and show me, yeah, it's going to work now? Like it doesn't happen, right? So it's taming uncertainty, right? This is a term that I really like, right? I think this is the job of an entrepreneur, especially in the beginning, where there's even more uncertainty. You're starting from zero, very little attention, little credibility, nothing working yet. You don't have connections. You have a lot of uncertainty. Life is just a big fog in front of you, business life. Your goal, I think, is to tame it. You can't eliminate it, you tame it. You need to be able to reason about it. And I think these small projects, you start getting, you got 100 customers. You might say, okay, it's not going to change my life, but I have 100 email addresses, right? Or maybe some of those
But
100
if they
people.
pay $39 per month,
Yeah, but
you get a million a year.
exactly. Yeah, and even if it was much lower than that, right? Even if it's just something that makes you, just $5,000 once, not even per month. Like just, put a small project, maybe $5,000 a month. You might say, okay, that barely covers my bills for this month. It's fine. It's not really about the money in the beginning, but in the beginning, there's this saying, success brings with it more success. It's usually used as a negative expression. Usually politicians use it as a way to justify inequality, and it certainly has its own problems in the world. But I think one way to take advantage of this seemingly rule of life, right, which probably we all understand, right, it applies, where the more you succeed, the more you're likely to succeed, is by going after the small wins. It's the complete opposite of what the Silicon Valley environment pushes you to do, to go shoot for the stars and land on the moon. I think what people should be doing is to curb their ambitions, go after the small wins, try to find 100 customers, charging them something one time, make $5,000. Now you have a small advantage. I would say a significant advantage compared to when you were with zero. You have 100 email addresses, you might have built some reputation, some audience. Some of those customers might leave you some testimonials, some reviews, which you might use for other products. Suddenly you're in a slightly higher step. The next product, your odds of success are significantly better, right? And it's used significantly easier. And then do another thing, small thing, right? And another thing. And eventually that you have portfolio of different things. Look, I right now I have, I think, 40,000 email addresses of people who I sold something to. It's a significant asset, right? And it has already, materially benefited me when I announced something and I said, hey, you bought something from me in the past. I just announced this new thing. I think it might interest you. Like, I've sent emails like this and made $40,000 like in 24 hours, like to my past customers. This is not relying on the Twitter algorithm, whatever, right? And this was selling small, tiny things. Like I made a short book about AWS, a course about Twitter. I sold spreadsheets, PDFs, lots of random things, even free downloads. Yeah, like
I
it's,
have to stop you. I have to
yes,
stop you. In 2021, you
yeah,
made a huge mistake,
yeah.
Daniel. And I have to
Thank
actually read it for you because we have prepared that, and I don't
Oh,
want to make a
awesome.
mistake and
It's
call you
probably
out.
not what you expect, though.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. I'm curious.
No, no, no. In 2021, you publicly said that you made $335,000, but in fact, it was 304. So there
Yeah,
was like $378 off.
right.
And, you know, but that doesn't quite matter because we all make mistakes.
Yes, yes. How,
Dan,
I'm
you need to
curious.
help me here.
I'm curious. How did you
Wait, wait,
find
wait.
it?
I'm not done here.
Okay.
I'm not done here.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but it doesn't matter because we all make mistakes, Daniel, except me and Dan, because we use Sentry,
Oh, I
and
see.
Sentry find mistakes for you.
Like, now I get it.
And my question now for you is, do you use Sentry?
I don't, and probably I should. So, looking forward to
It
being
was it
We
convinced.
was
have prepared here.
we came with receipts. So
So yeah, and actually, yeah. So what's interesting here? What messes up my numbers is that usually it's refunds, because I don't account for them in a consistent way. Sometimes I apply them negatively to when the sale happen, and sometimes I apply them when the refund happens. So that's why sometimes my numbers fluctuate a little bit. But
It's
wow,
okay.
that's
We are pushing.
incredible that you found it.
We really wanted to. We both follow you, so we know a lot about you, but we wanted to know everything about you. So now we do, and we just, we were going through the research, and we just learned to respect you more and more for what you did. So that's fantastic.
That's
So,
awesome.
but you should use Sentry. That is for sure. I think you're gonna love it because you have a huge technical background. I don't think you talk about it that much these days, but you used to post a lot about technical
That's how I
subjects, didn't you?
started, yeah. And that's also one of the other independence things that I appreciate. That is like I stopped. I wouldn't say I stopped being interested in tech. It's certainly not the case, but um, since I'm less involved on the, I don't program, I don't code on a daily basis right now. I would have to force myself to talk about tech stuff, right? So I
What
can
did
still
they
hold a
do in
conversation.
Amazon to you?
No, yeah, I think it's not. Look, uh, believe it or not, right? I have to admit that I almost enjoy being a marketer more than I enjoy being a coder. There's something about marketing, and actually, I think this is my other hot take. In my opinion, all indie hackers should think of themselves as marketers first. Everything follows
That's
from
what
marketing.
that's what I asked Mark Liu exactly. Do you consider yourself
Yeah.
a developer or a marketer now? Because I do think
You have
that's
to be a
the
marketer, and you
yeah, yeah.
build. And in fact, I think even if you were a co-founding pair where one is a more builder, one is a marketer, the builder should probably do what the marketer says. I think the marketer should be the leader. Like it's really a
I fully
marketing
agree
game.
with you. I
Yeah.
come to the office
Yeah,
every single day
objectively.
and I tell
No,
them, guys,
but
Listen to
what do you
me.
think?
this to me was a surprise about myself as well, because I never thought, I've been coding. I'm not exaggerating, right? I mean, since I was 5 years old, my dad bought a Commodore 64, like many geeks with computers. I started asking how to make games, and spent most of my childhood tinkering around with computers. I thought I'm the typical programmer who will only find satisfaction professionally in writing code and making computers do what I like or what I want them to do. I still enjoy that, but I think the challenge and the satisfaction from convincing humans to do what I want them to do is much more rewarding than convincing a computer to do what I want to do. And I think marketing essentially is basically that, right? And I really think to be successful, that you have an eye for marketing, right? To at least to improve your odds of success, right? Which is another thing that I discovered about myself that I'm really enjoying. So basically, coding became more of a means to an end for me now, right? I love having built something, but I want to just get over with it, right? And be there promoting stuff and tinkering with the landing pages and analyzing the data and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
And
getting deep in the
convincing
stats and
people, like persuading
optimizing. Yeah.
people, right? It's it's the amount of reward. Like again, I mentioned that email, for example. I sent an email, make $40,000 like with one email. It's very hard to describe how rewarding that is. Something you crafted, words you've written, convinced people to take the wallet out of their pocket, look at their 16-digit number, enter them there, press the
Can you
buy
read the
button.
email?
Yeah, no,
We
happy
should read
to.
it. Yeah.
No, but basically, it's literally it's nothing crazy, right? It's like what I was saying. You bought something from me in the past. I just did this. When I launched Small Bets, it started like that actually, right? And I sent it to everyone. Even it's funny. Like I experimented with so many things that at one point I was even selling handmade cutting boards. I don't know if you guys know about this. I started.
Then
No,
we are
So
ready.
you don't know about
we
this? Yeah. So
we sort of, but please,
no,
please tell
so
us
during the
about.
pandemic, like many people, had more abundant spare time and started picking up new hobbies and woodworking. A bit of personal frustration. I wanted a bunk bed for my kids and I couldn't find one that fit in the right place. So I figured, why don't I just make it myself? And long story short, I never made the bunk bed, but I started really enjoying making stuff. And I started buying tools and so on and
That's
so forth.
a true maker, right?
Yeah.
When you make physical products as well, then
Exactly. It is the
yeah.
true maker thing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
um, I was doing things for my house, tables, coffee tables, benches, desks, whatever. And sort of the entrepreneurial part in me was thinking, what if I could sell something? I never tried e-commerce, physical products. And one time I did this sort of basic cutting board for ourselves. And I said, actually cutting board is just a piece of rectangle, easy to ship. This
How
might be
hard
the
can it
best.
be? Yeah.
Oh, how can it be? So I actually, I didn't want to, cutting boards. There's so much on the market, $40, $20 on Amazon, race to the bottom. So to try to differentiate myself, I created these super fancy design cutting boards. Took me like very impressive kaleidoscope designs. And I tried to go high end, like selling a $400 cutting board, which is this was actually a marketing mistake that I'm happy to talk about it later. But anyway, long story short, I did a batch of these. I sold them all. I sold about 15 of them. I was hoping to do more. But then I started to do the numbers and the time spent, and I realized actually there's much more work than
So
I thought I would do.
so this is a super cool story. Actually, it's funny because on this show we have a recurring segment. You probably haven't seen that many episodes, but we call it a cutting board review.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, so we
That's
each
cute.
take a
Nice.
cutting board,
Yeah.
and there's it's a fairly thorough process. So we have five distinctive tests for each cutting board,
Yeah.
and we take this is a olive
Yeah. Oops, did we lose Dan? Or is
Yeah,
it just me?
he's testing the board right now.
or
Oh.
otherwise we just go do the segment and you can give your
Wait, Dan,
expert opinion.
we lost you for a second.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So you are cutting Dan, so I didn't get the question.
You were literally being cut then.
Yes, your ability being
On the
cut, yes,
board.
on the board.
So if you have a cutting board, just
I
feel free
don't
to
next
bring
to
it
me.
out.
Yeah, no, because I'm actually not in. I'm in Malta right now, not even where I live. So I'm in my summer home. I have no
Fair.
cutting boards here.
Fair enough. So let me walk you through it. So the first element is the smell. So Sandra, if you pull your cutting board, what is the smell? On my end, it's woody.
Yeah, this is actually a new wooden thingy that it's possible totally to stretch. And
Is
do
that
with
is
it.
that made out of wood?
Yeah, of course. It's a new material only produced in Finland. This is first time the world seeing something like this. I don't know if you actually.
Yeah, we can see. It looks very much like plastic to me. But let's move on. So flexibility wise, you seem to have an edge. Mine is pretty stiff, to be honest, which I would consider that a bonus. But in your case, you can
No,
do,
Dan,
yeah,
you
you
need
can
to do
actually achieve
actually.
more. You can actually achieve more with that. It's a bit of an innovation you got going on there. The next one is the knocking sound. Could you please? Yeah, mine is a 5 out of 5. It
Same
sounds.
here.
It's. Did you just knock on the table?
Yes.
It's. All right. Next one is utility. I think mine is very small, so I could probably cut a piece of cheese on it. Not much more than that, and I probably shouldn't put this in water. It might maybe Daniel knows. If I put this in water, will it last?
Yeah, you shouldn't submerge it,
No,
but
no.
of course, water won't harm it.
But mine, though,
Yours
Yes,
could
you
be
could.
fully submerged.
Yes,
Yeah,
it will
yeah.
remain for probably 10,000 years.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
And that is actually the problem with it.
what?
All
What are you
right.
talking about? I have no idea.
And finally, the thickness, Sandra. I think thickness is is maybe what's actually best? Should it be thicker or thinner?
Yeah. Usually it should be thicker. It depends on
Yeah.
what you're cutting, right? So if you're cutting like meat, for example, you want something thick to be able to like chop. But if you're cutting cheese, it's fine
For
either
cheese,
way.
yeah.
To answer
But
your
thickness helps
question,
with the
Daniel,
stability as well. So yeah, thicker is usually better.
to answer your question, do we know about your board? Yes, we do.
You do, yes, you do.
Seems like we.
Yep.
Daniel, I want to ask, do you still have time? Because we have a
I
couple
do.
more things.
Yes,
Yeah.
a
Okay.
lot of time.
Okay.
Yes.
That's fantastic. Because we have this other segment also that we did with Mark. It's called Morning Caffeine Burst, and
Okay.
it's a series of questions that you need to answer with yes or no. That's
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
And there will be a rapid fire, and then
Okay.
we just go through it. Are you ready?
Ready? Yes.
Work from home,
Yes.
VC funding,
No.
Levels.io,
Yes.
family,
Yes.
F1,
Yes.
Clarkson's farm,
Yes.
video courses,
Yes.
invest in Nvidia,
No.
40 hours. Oh, that's a 40 hours of work a week,
No.
living in Europe,
No.
coffee. It took a
Yes.
coffee. Yes.
Yes.
Paying taxes in Europe,
No.
standing desks,
No.
US dentists,
Still yes, despite my misadventure.
Malta dentists.
Yes.
Good. I think that's it. I think you've passed in my eyes. You've probably made a couple enemies along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I can explain if.
Yeah,
Or
well,
that's not part of the game.
briefly, why do
Yeah.
you think investing in Nvidia is not a good idea,
Oh
or
no,
not
it's
anymore?
so I went to a period where I was investing especially when I was working in Amazon and sort of I see investing in individual stocks almost as too speculative, at least in my current situation right now, and I already have a speculative part, which is my business. Right, so I want my money to be in as predictable things as possible. I don't want to. I used to be the kind of person who opens the stock market app in the morning to see how the stocks are doing. I don't want that anymore. So I'm mostly investing into very boring, broad things, lots of US treasuries, some ETFs, real estate. Again, not financial advice. I think it's, something I think I learned with investing is that, what's good for me is not necessarily good for level CEOs, not necessarily good for Warren Buffett, and what's good for Warren Buffett is not necessarily good for me, and so on and so forth. This depends on your circumstances, the stage you are in life, the other income streams that you have right now. So I like to balance things. So with my money, I like to put them in things where I know I'm going to find them. That's more important than day growing. And personally, just NVIDIA just for entertainment purposes. NVIDIA is such a fascinating business. I mean, think about it. It started as a gaming graphics card, and it had two lucky events, one with crypto and one with AI, where they succeeded with something they weren't even, which also goes back to the randomness of business when you think about it. Like imagine this insane, and twice, right? Well, crypto turned out to be the most important thing, and crypto almost died, or well, it went so it's on high bubble, and now AI. And I think when something grows up very quickly, the competitors will eventually catch up, and when something goes up quickly, it can also go down very quickly as well, right? So I think AI especially is so new that something small can change, and suddenly the need for NVIDIA cards could literally collapse almost overnight, I think, right? So again, it might still be a good investment, certainly a very spectacular business, but I wouldn't put a lot of money personally into it. It would probably be
But you mentioned something interesting to me. What do you think about like jumping on these
angel investing and things like that?
no, like some hot topics like AI right now? Like,
Yeah.
and then people
Yeah.
jumping and building products
No,
around AI.
I
And
respect. I think I respect people who do that, and I think it's a very good thing to jump on it. It's Peter Levels actually posted something very interesting a couple of days ago, or maybe even yesterday. He said, "I'm working on something non-AI, and I feel so relieved." And I think it encapsulated again, like there's so much uncertainty into that. And this is maybe if I was still 22 years old, I'm 41 now with limited time, 6 kids, I have lots of things going on. I don't think I have the appetite to be up to date with everything that's happening with AI and adapting. I still adapt to things, but I think that would require a level of adaptation that probably I can't tolerate right now, right? So again, don't get me wrong, if I find some opportunity, I can squeeze myself into it, I would take it, and I'm keeping an eye on things, and maybe I will try some small projects. I do have an open API account, and I experiment some things just out of
ready to
curiosity
be
and
used.
ready to be there, exactly. So but it's not like I'm dropping everything and going on AI just because it's the new gold rush. I'd rather, like in the next 6 months, do some of those boring Web 2.0 mini SaaS that I think I can find some customers a bit more reliably because I'm solving a problem that I need, and presumably a few others will need it as well, again, without necessarily thinking big. But yeah, like people who are pursuing it is a very good thing to pursue right now. And by the way, I think education in AI is another thing that is probably still under leveraged, right? People who want to teach other people about how to make the best use of AI, especially people, corporate managers and things like that. I think there's so much demand right now that, if you want to sell your sawdust, so to speak, right? If you're learning AI stuff for your own projects and you want to monetize some of the knowledge in your head, I think probably educational video courses, books, whatever, those kinds of things are probably another good opportunity.
I just want to quickly go back to like community you are building. How do you find the right people that are giving classes to your community? Like, how do you
Yeah.
recognize them? Is it coming from the community, or like you're just keeping threads and trends?
Mostly, I think probably mostly from Twitter, some from the community, but almost all personal connections, like people who I have recognized. But I think something I learned is that you do need a bit of a skill, right, to translate your knowledge to a teachable presentation. Do you still hear me, by the way? I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry.
Loud and
So
clear.
yes. So I think it's been a bit of partly it's also experimentation, right? You give people a chance, and then you see, did their message come through? Because sometimes you can tell they know a lot about the topic, but there's the curse of knowledge, they call it, right? In education, right? That you know so much that you forget how it was when you were completely green, right? And when you're using acronyms and jargon and other things, that you start to lose people. So basically, it's a bit of discovering people's credibility, mostly from Twitter, sometimes from the community, seeing people answering others. But then I test their skill to present by just giving them a chance, right? Would you come to do a class? Again, like members join for free once they join, so it's not like I'm charging people extra for these classes. So it's a bit of a low risk thing, even if it doesn't turn out to be super successful, it was still a free thing, right? So that's how I've been doing the process.
Yeah. I mean, you hear about small bets a lot, and there's a lot of talk about like who is actually coming and who is giving a speech and what people are learning. So there's a lot of excitement about that. But something interesting when we are talking about X and your content, you have very like kind of thought-provoking tweets.
Yeah.
Something like, here's what China banned, or
Yeah.
To say the
um,
least.
to say,
Yeah. So
or
yeah.
everyone wants everyone back to the office. What do you think
Yeah.
about that? And etc. Where is that coming from? How do you do that?
No. So I think I have a lot of non-thought-provoking thoughts, mundane things. I just don't tweet them, right? Because I don't think I think what ends up in my Twitter timeline are the things that I think I would find interesting. Right? So a little bit, play a little bit of golden rule with my Twitter account. It's a little bit my bar, right?
Mm.
I try to not always that I break the rules. Sometimes I post funny things or photo of the sunset or whatever, just for fun. But in general, I try to think like if I was scrolling Twitter and I stumble on this tweet and I pause to read it, would I regret reading it? Or
Mm.
would it cause some food for thought, some thinking, or me to maybe see things from a different light? Right? And I don't think it's a very high bar when you think about it. All you need is to make people pause and not regret it, right? And but I think there's a bit of a selection bias, right? Because I might seem like a super controversial person if you just read my tweets, but I think it's just the things that make it to Twitter are the things worth tweeting about, which which are the ones I tweet about, right? So, and most of these things come from, again, like interestingly, conversations with other people. Sometimes I'm chatting with people on Campfire with the community, and we're having a complex discussion there. And I think the habit of me now tweeting for a long time now, for almost 6 years, I feel I became good at condensing something in 280 characters. Peter Levels, I think, is way better than me, right? I think he's probably the gold
Oh,
standard
he
of
has
how
ability
to,
to
yeah,
exactly.
like how to put on a show. Like he said something once that I think is really interesting. I think it was with him with Arvid Khan on his podcast. He said on Twitter you have to put on a show, and when I heard it, I thought that's a bit odd. I don't think I put on a show. But then kept thinking about it, and actually, I thought, actually, that's true. That's what you need to do. You need to present things, even if it's a mundane thing. You need to present it in an entertaining way.
Mm.
Like, you asked me one of the rapid answer questions about Clarkson Farm. It's a mundane thing, right? It's a guy with a documentary comedy thing, a guy with a tractor, dealing with farming stuff, but it's presented in an incredibly entertaining way. First of all, a world-class comedian, sort of hosting it and so on and so forth. And I think if you start to develop an eye for mundane things, sometimes even like opening a bank account, like one of the most boring things, or trying to apply for a credit card and getting rejected, or running an advertising campaign. Recently, for example, I ran some ads on Twitter to test it out. Like, how do you share those results? You could share them in a boring way. But for example, to give you one concrete example, right? So during Black Friday last year, in November, I was trying Twitter ads for the first time, and I put a budget of $1,000 with a tweet for promoting small bets. And after the budget got exhausted, I realized the tweet made 1 million impressions from the ads, and I saw it on the dashboard, like $1,000, 1 million impressions. And this was interesting to me, right? It's the first time I could convert money to impressions, and then I could think about conversion rates and so on and so forth. And I wanted to share it with my audience, and I was trying to think of how to present it in a nice way. And I said something like, "Do you want 1 million impressions? Just pay $1,000." And it's an interesting, thought-provoking way, because many people think getting 1 million impressions on Twitter is very hard. Organically, I only got a few tweets that got 1 million impressions. $1,000 is not nothing, right? But it's also not like inaccessible. Right? If you really want 1 million impressions, you could pay $1,000 and you have it. And that's,
Yeah.
I think it's an entertaining way to present something so seemingly mundane, boring, a piece of data, right? So I really think that's the key, right? To nowadays, at least, right? To even to build in public. You can't just document, oh yeah, I'm updating my NPM packages, or I just can make my first dollar. You have to put something. You have to
Yeah.
make it interesting, right? And Peter does really well with the way he speaks, his stories he incorporates, and the things he leaves out, which I think is also important. Not intentionally to mislead, right? Because this is one of the tricks with Twitter. You can't have very nuanced, you can't write a book in a tweet, right? I mean, there are topics that I could write 500 pages on, but there's a version of that is 280 characters, and you have to leave things out. Now, if people might jump in the comments and ask, and you can have the more context that way, but it's part of the game there. I think that it's one way of having that kind of interactivity on that kind of platform, at least.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. There are certain templates. I think Dan and I used one few months ago, but when we did that, we had to leave Twitter for 2 days because we couldn't face what was
It,
happening.
yeah, it
Yeah.
felt wrong, it
Yeah,
felt like we shouldn't be doing this. So we just, when you do something bad and you close your eyes and you say, I don't want to see what
Yeah,
no
yeah,
happens.
problem.
That's,
yeah.
but that's what it is with social media. It's a lot of getting out of your comfort zone, isn't it?
Look, I think I talk about topics that I think throughout all my life I had always, for example, on money, right? For some people, talking about money is something a bit taboo. I've always talked about money since I was a kid, I think, right? And as soon as I got my first job, I told all my friends how much I'm making. Even when I was at Amazon, I think I got a lot of respect from my colleagues because I was helping them. Look, this is how I made at your level. I think you should ask for a pay raise. And this was very refreshing because most people don't talk about those things. And so me doing that on Twitter wasn't that of a stretch. I felt I've done it a long time. There are many other things I don't talk about, right? Personal relationships or whatever. I don't feel, and the same thing, to be honest, in real life. They're not the kind of things I tend to be very open about with strangers in particular, and I wouldn't be on Twitter. And I don't think you necessarily need to stretch yourself too much. And I think it's certainly if something feels too risky to say because it might upset your friends or your boss or whatever, I would encourage you to not post it, right? Because you don't want to cause any harm. And I do hold myself sometimes from saying things because I know it doesn't affect just me, right? I know friends of my wife are seeing my tweets and other things. So, I draw the line at some point. Like, what's the point in ruffling too
Oh,
many
bad,
feathers?
bad. And now people in comments are asking, what is your stance on Europe? And maybe that's not the right moment then to talk
No,
I'm
it's
happy
about.
the
to.
wrong
No, no.
podcast.
No, happy to
We
elaborate.
can
I'm in
do it.
Europe
We
right
can do
now,
it.
so
Yeah.
whatever. Happy to.
We can
Uh,
skip that one.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm not going to get you cancelled. Like, I don't have a very controversial. I'm European,
Appreciate
right?
it.
So I'm European living in the USA permanently, right? But I'm in Europe right now, so I'm sort of um, uh, happy to talk about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, whatever.
But
Where
let's
were we?
let's let's go back to the
Yeah.
ads. Let's go back
Ads,
to the
yes,
ads.
yes. So the ads is, I think that was just one basic example, right? Because I think once you start developing this eye of putting up a show, as Peter put it, even basic things that happen to you. Yeah, Peter Levitz had this excellent example, I think a couple of weeks ago, where his girlfriend had her luggage lost, right, with one of the airlines, and he wrote this long form tweets, not very long. It felt like something he wrote very quickly. It was nothing related to his businesses, mostly, and at least not directly. Um, but it was a bit of a show. Basically, the show was that despite me having the air tags, we have the air tags on all our luggage and we know exactly where they are, the airline still can't do anything. And that's an interesting, thought-provoking thing, that, oh yeah, actually, why am I bothering? Sometimes it's better actually if you don't know. And actually, they were traveling again, so there was all this mess. And same thing, like it was this dentist thing, right? Not thread, like long form post that you referred to, I think, in the quick answer, quick fire thing, right? Which same thing, it was very recent experience. And I think these things really help build um, build connection with people. I mentioned like Mark, for example, and Peter. I never talked with either of them on a one-on-one call, but I feel I know them. And I think that happened because of these kinds of tweets. They're not just presenting statistics or documenting boring things, right? They're giving away a part of their life, still not necessarily a huge part,
Mm.
right?
But they're
You're the
definitely part of,
director. Yeah, some
yeah.
part. Right? I think to be authentic, this is another misconception. You don't have to share everything.
Mm.
You can be authentic and you just share something. Right?
Absolutely. And I think the indie hackers, or at least in our community, people manage to show themselves and sell themselves as well, and then
Yes.
whatever they're building or product they're selling, either to the community or outside of the community. And I think that's really like interesting part of marketing, if you manage to, because
Yeah.
we can see like people building different projects and then keep selling these different projects, so people are not
Absolutely.
emotionally
Yeah.
connected to
Exactly.
these projects, but
Exactly.
rather to the person who is selling these
Yep.
things.
This is it. This is it. When I think about it, I prefer doing business with people who I know, right?
Yeah.
So, if again, like
John
if
said that in the last episode, if I'm able to hug you, I'm able to do business with you.
exactly, right? So this is the thing, right? And look, like I mentioned Campfire, right? And I've been following Jason Fried, DHH forever, learned a lot from them and inspired me a lot. It's look, it turned out to be something that I needed, right? But one of the motivators to even pay attention to it, just because I felt I know them. And again, same thing here. I know them only from X and from the internet. And I think this is something that I think, yeah, and the hackers should getting yourself known. Like this is, I think, basic commerce from thousands of years ago. Right? That I think it's just human nature. I think modernity has created this illusion that we're doing business with big faceless corporations because you go to the supermarket, it's not like you know who the supermarket owner is and you're dealing with these brands, whatever. But the prime mode of commerce, the more primitive, is you're dealing directly with the farmer, you're dealing with the blacksmith, you're dealing with whatever. And I think this is all the internet, I think, has helped a lot, especially the social media, probably even more so, make the small business again be able to commerce and do transactions based on I'm buying the thing because I know you, right? Not because I did some analysis in the spreadsheet, weigh the pros and cons, and of course it needs to do its job, right? But that's one of the main things. A very big thing, I think.
But what's different? Like, if you would start your journey today, what's the biggest difference in what you were doing years ago? So, like, what would be
Yeah.
the biggest lesson or something that you would say to indie hackers how to get themselves into this and build something that is successful? How many times we have to fail? At least that.
Look,
Is there a
interesting
number?
question. Actually, the failing part. So let's put another hot take. I think failure is over glorified, right? And I think there's this mantra many people say, oh, I failed, but at least I learned something. And I think I would recommend people to even stop saying it. Not because you don't learn something when you fail, but failure is a very costly way to learn. Look, if you're trying to fly a plane, you shouldn't expect to crash the plane to learn how to fly it. Actually, that would be a very foolish thing to do, right? You should learn other ways. And in fact, I think small wins are better teachers than failures, big or small. When you like send an email and it converts, it brings you $1,000 in sales. There's more to learn from sending an email and it flops. Because if it flops, why did it flop? Was it because of the subject? Was it because of the delivery rate? Was it because of the email provider? Was it because of the body? Was it because it's too long? Was it because it's too short? Was the call to action too bad? There's a million variables. If it worked, you might still not know why it worked, but you can at least copy it. And next time you do something, use the same template and whatever. And in fact, if you look at my landing pages of my products, once I stumbled on something that worked, I almost kept repeating it, even for completely different things, right? Because for some reason this seems to be working, right? So there's information in small wins more than there is with failure. So I think that's an interesting thing, right? Because I think sometimes these small bets, sort of ship fast philosophies get misinterpreted as just throw a bunch of random things to the wall and hope something sticks. But I think that's also too naive, right? It's not about just randomly throwing things at the wall. I think you should do things that have a fighting chance of paying off, right? So there should be at least a hypothesis, right? If you're doing this project with the expectation that, say, you should have an expectation, in my opinion, say, if this makes me $10,000 or $100,000 in its lifetime, this project that I'm working, I'm going to be satisfied. That's my expectation. Then the next question should be, what's my hypothesis for how that expectation is going to happen? What are these people? If I want to make $100,000 and I'm selling this thing for $100, I'm going to need 1,000 customers. Where are those 1,000 customers going to come from? I have no followers on Twitter, no audience. Maybe I need to do SEO. Let me go take a look at some keyword research tools. How many people are searching for these terms? Are they too crowded? If yes, they're all sort of the top 10 are filled by high-ranking domains. Why do I think I'm going to be in there? So you need to convince yourself that this at least has a fighting chance of working. If not, I would recommend do something else or shape it to something different, right? So
this fits so very well with what you said. The best thing you could do is realize you are not special and learn how to deal with all the uncertainty of life.
Absolutely. Taming uncertainty. That's the job, right? You're not special, you're not a visionary. Even if you are, I think you should assume that you aren't, right? You're just an agent in the market with a bunch of opacity in front of you, because things are too complex for our human brain to understand. That is like trying to predict the weather for the next month. With all the technology we have and we can't really do it, right? We can guess, educated guess, it's likely going to be sunny, it's summer, right? But, I watch Formula One, it's funny, right? I was just watching qualifying in Hungary this morning. Hungary has been in a heat wave for like an entire month. Out of nowhere, it started raining, right? And there's teams spending billions of dollars in equipment and technology. Nobody predicted the rain. They're all like, oh, and they're all unprepared. It's fascinating. And the market, and it's just some atmospheric phenomena happened, and suddenly all the humidity turned into rain. And I think the market is the same thing, right? You still can make all these educated guesses about, I assume 1% conversion rate and have so many followers on Twitter. If 1% see the tweet and 1% buy, that's good. I highly recommend you do that math in your head or a piece of napkin or whatever, but it's still uncertainty at the end of the day, right? But I think there should be a selection criteria. That I think sometimes, again, builders who consider themselves builders, I think jump too quickly on projects because they're excited to build them, or they, and again, like if this is going to be a one-day project, fine, like whatever, do whatever you want. But if you're spending even a week, I think, a week, there aren't a lot of weeks in a year, right? I mean, a week is still a decent amount of investment. 2 weeks, a month, even more so. Like if you're spending a month, I would say there aren't a lot of months in a lifetime, right? A month is still a chunky amount of life to spend on a project. You should be doing things that, and sometimes, the payoff, your expectation may be not necessarily financial. I'm doing this to improve my reputation. Maybe it's an open source project, right? Or for improving my audience or growing my, that's fine. But it's important to have some expectations, some hypothesis how you're going to get there, and then you mitigate the risk by controlling your appetite, right? And I think this is the most systematic way of taming uncertainty in this world.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Oh, sorry, Dan.
No. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's interesting. Every time we had a guest, one of the main things that they've been saying is that the lessons they learned during the failure, and they said exactly the same thing as you said. We need to stop using that word.
Yeah,
because it kind of shapes you, like everything you go through with building these projects on site, it shapes you, or the image you are sending out there.
Many things. I think it's just the wrong way of thinking, right? It should be about winning, right? And like you try to do something small, low hanging fruit, what's the easiest $100 you can make, and then try to learn from that. I think that's the right way to do it, right? And then you try to make $500 and then $1,000, and you learn from those. Sometimes you'll fail, but I think again, like doing all these post-mortem. So look, failure, of course, unpredictable things like when there's a plane crash and the authorities come and examine what failed. That's very important. We know that things improve when things are very deterministic, like that. The sensor froze and that's what happened. That's great. But in business, again, we're like in this complex world where you can't even know and this is like also very naive. Sometimes you see these post-mortems of people reflecting on their failures and they're, oh, I failed because I didn't do enough marketing, or I failed because I didn't do this or that. Why do you think so? It could very likely have been some other things, right? And things that you can't even see or reason about, right? So I think you risk learning negative knowledge. I like to call it. So you risk jumping to conclusions that shouldn't be jumped to if you keep trying to learn from these kinds of things.
Daniel, I have maybe an unusual question, but
Yeah.
do you well, you feel like something's
He's
coming,
ready.
but that's just not.
Let's go.
Do you feel like what you've shared in this show, that is it fine to use this content? Because I think it's essentially a gold mine. It's a recipe for people to build their own image. Do you feel
Yeah.
that's fine? That yeah.
Yeah. No, use. That's the impression. That's the assumption I had. Yeah, use
Can you
whatever you
say
want.
Okay.
clearly yes?
Clearly, do I need to sign it
Okay.
on the
Okay.
camera?
Can you?
Yes.
Because Sandra, you look a bit hungry, by the way. Because while we while we were talking, I got this. Do you know this app called Limitless? They have a pendant.
I don't think so.
Okay, so basically, it takes the transcription of whatever you're doing on the computer, so whatever it is. So I kind of took the transcription of all the learnings and created a book, like as we were talking, and it's a handbook, right? It has 9 pages. That's what it ended up being. And I took everything you said, and it's now on sale on
Wow.
smallopinions.com.
Already?
We it's there. It can be bought. If I press buy, right, we go to a checkout. There's a really beautiful illustration of you, essentially saying,
It's amazing.
"Be careful what you're getting into." I'm just gonna tweet this right now. I think I have a tweet ready. So
This is a
there's
next level.
there is a twist to it, though. So, like, I really wanted the marketing to be cool and to have urgency. And
It's the best
urgency
copy I
is
have
good.
ever seen in my life.
So the price doubles with each 10
Yeah,
sales.
I've seen this. This thing.
So, some people might get it, and then afterwards it will be quite expensive. And I've asked ChatGPT earlier.
Yeah.
Oh no, now they're gonna see all my
Oh, man.
chats. That was a bad idea. Lara, cut this out in post. It will end.
82,000. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it
nice.
can end up as a pretty nice small bet that
Yeah.
we just did. I can I'll send you the PDF afterwards. It actually turned out really, really nice. Can I just show you one page? Let me
course.
see. That would be pretty cool. Let's see. Can I open this in Chrome somewhere?
How much is it?
$8.99.
It's $8.99 to start, and it's gonna go up. So this is the cover. I really like these illustrations, man. The age of AI, where you can generate these things,
Yeah.
there's so much
Crazy.
creativity. Yeah. So we have a small intro, and a happy Daniel down there. And then the structure is very simple. It's a little bit like this. It's a big takeaway on a stepping stone on the journey, a few what to do and what not to do, or when to do it, mentality, and then like bullet points of learning. So it's pretty digestible. And yeah, it goes up to 11 pages. That's all I'm gonna show. This is the teaser. I'm quite excited about it. It turned out I was skimming through it. Of course, I was listening to you, so I hope there's nothing very embarrassing in there. But that's sort of why we asked if it's okay to share this.
No, this is very impressive, and actually, this is a very an excellent demonstration of selling your sawdust, right? And sort of micro products.
Maximizing, yeah.
No, yeah, it's wonderful. No, I'm blown away.
1 million revenue in 3 years.
Yeah, yeah.
I stole some of the screenshots from your blog. If we need
Oh,
to
yeah,
pay
it's fine.
royalties, please let
No,
me know. I thought this is very good with motivation.
yeah.
I'm so sorry, but I cannot continue. Daniel, are you Italian?
So I'm Maltese, very close to Italy. My last name, I think, comes from Italy, but from hundreds of years ago. So I don't know any Italian
Why am I eating
ancestors.
pineapple and pizza then, Dan?
No, it's no. We do
I've-
it too. We do it too.
It's
uh,
disgusting. We just wanted to annoy
that's
you a little bit.
yeah, that's 1/4 of the audience gone, Sandra. Thank
Gone.
you so
Yes, yes.
much for that. Yeah, it's but that's what you said before, right? That you need to put on a show, and I think
Exactly.
that's the spirit of the Morning Maker show. It's in the name. So if we don't put out a show, then I
Yeah.
think something's wrong.
And in fact, it's interesting. Like all podcasts or most podcasts call themselves a show, and it's an interesting term. You know, it has something in it. Right? So I think it's important for people to remember. You're doing something in public, you're always putting up a show, right? You have to. So yeah, you guys are doing great.
Thank you so much. Would you say you've been to many podcasts before?
Yeah.
How are we ranking up? You
Very,
know,
very top. Very good.
yeah.
I think this is one of the most casual ones I've been in, which is very interesting. I'm trying to sort of process if this is my preferred style, but it's excellent. I really enjoy it. You know, I caught glimpses of the ones you did with Marie and with Mark and maybe another one or so on Twitter mostly, right? I was just browsing Twitter and I saw the live feed there and I got hooked, right? So I from when I started watching, I kept watching it all. So I really enjoyed it. Certainly, I just
Which one
subscribed on
we
your
did?
YouTube as well because I mostly watch recorded stuff on YouTube. So I increased your YouTube subscriber count by one. So, and I don't subscribe
Every
often.
subscriber counts. Every
Counts, yes.
subscriber counts. Yeah.
um,
Are
but
you
yeah,
planning to go to YouTube at some point?
I'm very tempted. It's the social media platform, if you call it that way, that I think I enjoy consuming as much as Twitter, probably. I think I spend most of my consumption time on Twitter and on YouTube. I think the problem I have still with YouTube is the putting up in a show part where it doesn't take too much energy out of me. You know, I'm mostly an introvert, right? I'm certainly not a camera. I don't consider myself the kind of person who, you know, super familiar with the camera, recording myself live like this. I'm okay, but there's some awkwardness that I still haven't figured out. But I'm waiting, or I'm trying to find a casual way of a casual format that
I
might work
have to
for me.
tell you, you are dealing with me and Dan quite very, very well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
No,
I'm
thanks.
Exceptionally
it's
well.
here and
It,
he's making a PDF book and you are doing an excellent job
yeah.
here.
But I noticed this is again like this is the I watch a lot of YouTube, right? And well, mostly hobby stuff again, woodworking and cars and DIY and whatever. And you watch part for the content, right? Oh, yeah, I learned a new skill or whatever. But part is really entertainment, that I just want to see something a bit spectacular being done in a nice way. And I'm not sure yet what my voice metaphorically is. You on Twitter, I think I found it, right? But on video format, I'm not there yet. But I feel I have lots to say and to cover, right? So it's sort of there's a bit of attention there. So very likely I will try at some point. I'm interested.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see more and more people from community moving there. And I think that's the kind of fear of like what's gonna happen with X and you need to have multiple
Yeah.
different channels. And I think YouTube is great way, as you said, like if you're able to find your own way of like talking and presenting and having the idea of what to put there.
Yeah.
And I think we saw with Mark Lou, like he expanded his reach on YouTube as well, and it was like really interesting for everyone
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
see like what happened when we go out from our own bubble.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I would never be able, I don't think ever, even if I dedicate the rest of my life, I would be able to do what Mark does on YouTube. That I think he has something in his personality that I don't think I can replicate. That I just have to recognize my limitations. But I still think there's a chance that I find my own style,
Mm.
right? Where there's less acting and less, I love his stuff, right? I watched some YouTube videos and some of his clips on Twitter are super entertaining. I retweeted some of them because they're really fascinating.
Mm.
I admire his talent and skill and the effort to put in. But I don't think I would ever be able to get it. So I think for me, I would have to find my own thing, right? It's like, what can it be where I'm presenting something where I'm still putting up a decent show again because I want it to be entertaining without it feeling like it's either taking out all my energy or that I'm spending, sometimes I know people, YouTubers, like spending weeks editing something. I don't think I have the patience or the appetite to do that, right? Twitter is the opposite, right? Twitter is right now it's become so much of a part of my life that it's negligible the time I spent tweeting. I spend a lot of time on Twitter scrolling, consuming, and liking and whatever. But me tweeting, it's almost nothing. And I'm sure YouTube can never be like that. I'm willing to put more investment, more time into it, but it still has to be again within my appetite of commitment.
But I have to tell you, people are saying that you're sharing so much wisdom, so maybe that's just the way
Yeah,
to
it's good
go.
to
Just
good to
yeah.
yeah, and I think what I'm missing yet on Twitter is the nuance on thing. And this I think
Mhm.
so far I think I had some success with the live classes. I've hosted lots of live classes on Zoom. Like I've done this sort of 9-hour program on small bets. I did lots of small classes, 1-hour classes on marketing, on Gumroad, on self-employment, on lots of small topics. And this is where I'm able to share my screen, show examples, show my books, and I think people appreciate that. Like, I mean, I'm showing my live dashboard. Here's how I do things, and I think this is what I want to translate. But I think again, like when you're doing a live class, you spend an hour talking about something, and there's interaction from the crowd. They're typing in the chat, asking questions. There's that engagement. I think when you're doing something recorded, it needs to be probably a bit more high density because there isn't the communication with the audience, right? So it needs to be a bit more probably rehearsed, delivered well, right? So I think this is the last bit I need to cover. But yeah, I have lots of content that I can probably
Yeah,
repurpose
imagine
into.
all those shorts you're gonna be able to
Yeah,
distribute to
just
every single
yeah,
channel.
yeah.
Yeah. But sorry, Dan.
Yeah, no
Go
worries.
no,
This is
go
this is
ahead.
my
Go ahead.
sign to put my mic
Yeah.
down.
No, no, this is fantastic. I think I have one more question, but Daniel, if you have something to say, I've bet there's quite a few people that have been tuning in throughout. I don't know if you've seen Philippe Keller around. Maybe he's one
Philip
of the
Keller.
persons
Yeah.
here
I-
mentioned. Yeah, he's absolutely he has been floored since the beginning of the show. So just wanna say thank you for
Okay.
tuning in and appreciate all the nice comments. Dmitro Krasun, the screenshot one founder, also there, and he's a big fan as well. But everyone is in the indie community, so great that you've managed to build all of this and also to give back, because I think a lot of the stuff that you do at small bets ultimately it gives back more than you receive. That's my perception of it, and if that's just marketing, then so be it. It's good marketing, but I really appreciate all that you do. And
Thank you.
here's the last question.
Yes.
Are you ready? What is one secret to this that you haven't shared anywhere else so far? You've shared a lot of things, but one thing that you just kept for yourself and never really quite had the courage to put out there. Can you say it from the top of your head?
I think maybe something that I've undershared. It's there somewhere, like, because I share so many things in detail. Like I share spreadsheets of my finances, and I try to answer every question that I get. That's probably it's covered somewhere. But I think probably one of the underreported things that I don't share a lot is the regular look. If you look at my success, like I think one of the screenshots you took for that mini booklets, I had my revenue per year or whatever. Looks like it's growing in a linear way, and everything is peachy and rosy. But I think if you were to zoom down into my life on a day-by-day basis, week-by-week basis, there's lots of stressors where things are not going very well, right? I mean, things were going good last month. Now they're actually down 70%, right? And what do I do about it? And I really struggle to communicate this because I don't think it would resonate. I mean, it's not because it's not resonate. I haven't yet found a valuable way to share this stuff because, like, what do you say? Like, again, like I try to, again, part of the show, part of it, right? It needs to be something useful to the audience, right? If I'm just saying, oh yeah, this week, to be, for example, like last week, I think was one of my, last week, right? Exactly last week, one of my worst revenue sales in many years, probably in 3 years. And this might sound like a big problem, but actually I get things like this relatively often where there's something going wrong. And there's a lot of things that I do that like it's all related to adaptation, like I described before. Right? It's like, okay, first of all, is this noise? Is it just just one random? There's always going to be some worst week, right? Or is it some signal? And then you start to look at other things, and what do you do about it? Right? How to adapt? So I don't know if this is a secret, right? But maybe it's something that I haven't managed to be very transparent with yet in detail. And part of it may be because there is a bit of a concern, right? Of nobody wants to say something is not doing, like one of their businesses is not doing well, because it's sort of almost negative social proof, right? So that's some hesitation there. Like, but if you go to smallbets.com, for example, right now, and I have the live counter, this is driven from the database, 82 people joined this month. I never remember, since we put that counter on, I never remember that being lower than 100, right? And this is this is a problem, right? Because it's I need this to be, my target is at least 150 per month, right, for the business to sort of continue to be where it's doing. So what do I do with this? I don't know yet, right? But I have lots of ideas. And I bring this as an example. This is not like a crisis, like it's not like panicking, whatever, because I would say something like this, some variation like this happens probably once every 6 months. I have something that I was hoping is going to be doing so much, and now it's not doing this. What do I do about it? And I really believe how you react to these stressors is very important. But it's one of the things that I don't know how to articulate yet in a useful way.
I love what you said, in a useful way.
Yeah, like, because I feel like I'm getting better at these things. That it's sort of, these things don't even, I wouldn't say they don't worry me, but it's part of the game now. It's just I've done them, I've recouped enough time. So I wrote once I tried, right? I wrote a blog post cheekily titled "Variable Income Makes Me Smarter," where I tried to explain how these dips. This is a bit of a reflection before, after my life as an employee versus self-employed. Like, when I was an employee, I was getting a regular paycheck, to precise, to 2 decimal places every month in my bank account. I knew exactly how much I was going to be making. Things were very, very predictable. I started working for myself. I was getting these spikes, especially in the very beginning where I only had like one or two products on the market. I was getting, 1 month I make $30,000. The next month I make, $6,000. And then I knew put something out, I make a big spike and it was all over the place. And at first I thought, again, my first reaction was, oh my God, how I'm going to be able to reason about the future if I can't really know how much money I'm going to be making this month or next month. But then I started to realize that um, I almost need these dips, right? I mean, actually, I almost go on autopilot where things are going smooth, right? I almost became complacent, right? And sort of, and I've went through periods here in small bets. For example, there were periods 2023, like the second half, 2022, almost all of it, like things were just growing on their own without me doing anything. And just my brain almost can't really be productive when things are, yeah, it's just, why bother
Too
going
good.
to
Yeah.
work, right? I mean, things are doing well. So I almost need these stressors for me to adapt, right? I mean, I need something to go wrong, to me to learn something new, to stretch myself, to reconsider, to analyze things better.
This is
And so,
such a positive way of thinking, and it's
yeah,
such a good way also of thinking in like the work that we are. Because if you're gonna like have these dips, and we all have them, but
yeah,
if you're gonna like fall on them and be scared of them, but
yeah, absolutely.
having
That's,
that creative mind where you need to figure out what's next
yeah.
step is just
What's
brilliant.
next? How do I adapt? Right? I really think this
Yeah.
is a fitness game, fitness with the market, right?
Mm.
So like fitness, we use it usually for health and fitness with our environment and to be fit with the sort of with our health. But I think there's another fitness with the market, and the market changes, the world changes. We change. My availability for how much work I can do changes depending on the lives we're living. So it's always trying to find, okay, this is how much time I have, this is how much energy I have, this is what the market seems to need, this is what the market seems to not want anymore. Like I was telling you with the live classes before, like I'm seeing a diminishing interest. What do I do? Right? Okay, let's try this, let's try that, and small bets. That is why I really like it. It's very meta now, right? But saying small bets within this small bets community as a product, and yeah, so I don't know if this sort of answers the question very well, but I think it's probably the thing that I wish I were able to articulate better. And it's a bit of a secret because I feel I got good at this, but I'm almost hiding it from people, not intentionally, just because I don't know how to explain it. Not to. But I think it's like an athlete. How you go to Djokovic and ask him how do you hit the hit the tennis ball very well. He probably won't be able to explain it, not because I'm that level, but because I think some things are just you just need to live it, right? To know that to learn. I think there's a technical term for what I'm trying to say, right? There's like this knowledge that it's just hard to describe.
It's a
Thank you
superpower.
for sharing. Yeah, thank you for sharing. This is precisely what I wanted to hear, to be honest. So I appreciate being open and yeah, sharing something that maybe you could read it in between the lines, but I think, as you say, you don't talk about it much. But I think it's important to also have this in mind. Especially, I always feel people see what we do online and then they might get motivated to start their own thing. And sometimes they don't know what they're getting into. And truthfully, no one does until you
Yeah.
start it, right? That's fair. No one really knows how this is gonna
Not even
pan
until you
out.
start it, even once you start it, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's uncertainty all the way, right?
yeah,
This is the game.
yeah. But it's sometimes nice to also hear the other side of it and to yeah to get the complete picture. So thank you so much for that.
Sure.
All
Now we
right.
need
So
an update on PDF before we end the podcast, please.
yeah, I mean, it could have went a bit better. Our website seems to be flagged. Like we just hit on a name that seems suspicious, and I don't know. I looked, is there a swear word or something in between, so I could share the lemon squeezy link. But the website, I'm still having issues, so I think I'll just change the domain slightly. Uh, so you know, you win some, you lose some, as we
This is what
discussed.
exactly we're talking about. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not.
Failure is glorified, right? So let me get a small win, which is we got to get some praise from Daniel for making the PDF in the first place. So I take that, and I'll take that learning. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much, Daniel. You're really an inspiration, and there's so much we can learn from you.
No, no,
It's been great.
thank you for inviting me. And I'm a new fan of the show, so we'll be looking forward to your new episodes with other people.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Sandra. Do you want to close it down?
Oh, I can't get used to of this. But thank you everyone for watching. You can listen us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok. Am I missing something, Dan?
Instagram, yeah. All the
Instagram?
so we can just say all the social media. I
All
think
the
just,
social
just
media. I think so. That's the best one. We have a lovely Discord channel. You can join us on morningmakershow.com and see you for the next episode. In the meantime, have a lovely weekend, everyone.
perfect. Daniel, please don't go.
No, no, I'll stay
Sandra, you
here.
can close it.
Wait a
Yeah.
minute. I don't know how to do this. Why? Live
Just
recording?
press on the close, but yeah.
Stop.